the leakage of the NEET paper. This was in May, and 5 days after the exam was conducted, it had to be cancelled when a leak was detected. There was a guidebook that was in circulation, and when the investigators checked the data and the information of the guidebook, they realized that almost 60 to 70% of the questions that were being circulated actually were from the main paper. That's the reason. That's the main reason why the NEET exam was cancelled eventually, and it was rescheduled in June. And the numbers are quite staggering, because if you look at the numbers, more than 22 lakh aspirants had to attend this exam, and it was cancelled in May, as I mentioned earlier, because a guest paper circulating in coaching hubs was found to overlap heavily with the real paper. It was reconducted on 21st June 2026 at 5,440 centers across 551 cities and 14 centers abroad, mobilizing hundreds and thousands of personnel. So for us, this repeated leakage of question papers is a great cause of concern. I'm saying this Rahul Gandhi opened his speech in Kota. He said, this is not about the Congress, and he was not going to talk about the Congress or the BJP. This is us, parents, concerned citizens. For example, I'm a third generation teacher, and my colleague over here, Mr. Banpra, is a teacher, by profession. He runs a school, Manuel has families, right, who are in the teaching profession. Like I said, I'm a third generation teacher. My family, has set up 2 schools. We've set up 1 college. And on top of that, almost all my cousins, all my aunts are in the teaching profession. So for us, it's really a cause of concern, because the NEET, it's just a symptom. The disease, the ailment is somewhere else. And for us, we felt that it's very, very important that, that we highlight where the ailments are.
Responsibility instead of just... if you ask me, I'm 150% agreeing with you, because it's a concurrent list, right? Education is not just a responsibility of the central government, and education is also not just a responsibility of the state government. They work both hand in hand, right? The problem with the state government here is basically we are living in a notion that we have to keep on depending. The education system has to be dependent on the center. Even though, yes, as per the spending, in proportion to the GDP, we're not as bad as what the center is doing. We're doing far better. But it does not translate to actually results, right? So why it's not translating to results? I think it's because the government itself, in most of the time, in most of the cases, is not really focusing on what is required to be focused upon. There's a lot of opportunity which is being wasted. When I go around and I speak to many people from the teaching staff and who run schools and so on and so forth, most of the teachers do tell me, and it's a common knowledge here that everybody knows, that most of the teachers are burdened with so many other work rather than teaching itself. Yeah, right? So when you burden with so many administrative work just because the government wants certain data, and those data keeps on changing every week or so, it just shows that everybody is in a, what we call as running helter-skelter, right? You're like a chicken with no head, and you're running from pillar to post, and you're not going to reach anywhere. And if you have an education system which is like that, and you have the teaching staff which exactly is not being guided in the proper manner, then obviously education is suffering and will continue to suffer. I think the government has to put its foot down. We all know that the center itself is not concerned about the education system, whether it's in the state or in the country as a whole. But the state has to put its foot down and work on what it feels is a priority, because this has nothing to do with politics. This is
that is the National Testing Agency. Now, if you look at the education education is on the concurrent list, which is a shared responsibility of the center and the states. Yet, NEET, CUET, and the NTA-led national testing have concentrated power in Delhi. When the centralized system collapses, as evidenced by the NEET leak, Delhi takes the credit for control. but pushes the blame onto students and states. So the same person is visible in school funding. The system told Parliament, the Centre told Parliament in the financial year 24-25 that Kerala, Tamil Nadu, and West Bengal received no Samagra Shiksha funds, which is roughly around 328.90 crore for Kerala, rupees 2,151 crore for Tamil Nadu, and rupees 1,745 crore for West Bengal. These funds were not released because the three states refused to sign the MOU, which is sign the PM Shri MOU, tying them to the centre's policy. Later, of course, we came to know that the funds were released for Kerala and Tamil Nadu. But the fact that the centre used this as a leverage mechanism to coerce and to force the states into signing, into accepting the policies of the central government is indicative of how the central government is actually using policy as a political tool. So we are very concerned about that also, because this money is not the central government's money, it's the people's money, and it's meant for government school children. But in this particular case, like I highlighted, it was used as a lever, as a leverage to force compliance. Now, for a small funding dependent state like Meghalaya, this sets a frightening precedent. Either we agree with Delhi, or we get penalized. So this is another major concern as far as the education system is concerned.
It's legitimate for the Congress to have a certain demands as far as education is concerned, because the demand for resignation of the union minister, which is repeated, and because of the various nationwide exam failures, I think is a legitimate demand. And we believe so that somebody, we always say that somebody has to bell the can. No, the buck has to stop somewhere. And the buck at this time has to stop with the education minister, the union minister. I think it's very important that we stick to that. And the government also shows at least that it takes it a lot more seriously than what it has been doing. We also say that, that whatever leakage that has happened in the past, I think there should be a time-bound investigation towards the various leakages that has happened, because the public needs to know, the students needs to know, and especially people who are aspiring, because then you'll build the confidence level amongst the students as far as students is concerned, because I think it's been eroding, and it's eroded quite heavily right now. So most of the students have given up on the system itself. Full disclosure of the Radhakrishnan committee recommendations were actually implemented. So that we have to know. Restructuring and replacement of the NTA with a transparent, accountable, properly staffed body. Right? As I think Balang has mentioned earlier, that it's more or less everything seems to be heading down to commercialization.
It is.
And the BJP is more interested in actually making money from each and every system that might exist. And I think that is something that needs to be looked at more seriously. And the NTA, definitely a restructuring of the NTA is a legitimate demand from our side. As far as teachers are concerned, I think the numbers have already been spelled earlier. It's quite a huge number, nearly 10 lakhs now. We believe that many vacancies, and I think the ugly face is even being seen in Shillong, right? So Nehu itself has a huge amount of teaching staff which is not filled, and there's no intention to refill them. I think that will definitely impact the education system, which is very basic, but then it's very important that has to be taken into account. The students who have been betrayed, right? Most of the students, I think it's becoming a health issue. Yeah. So the mental health of many of these students who has gone through such a traumatic experience, I think it's the government's responsibility to take care of them. It's the government's responsibility to ensure that no harm is done to them, because it's of no fault of theirs. And I think that's also very important. Parliamentary debate on the future of national education and the national testing itself. I think so the government should open up and should not just keep on shunning people from discussing this on Parliament. And I think the floor of the Parliament is an important, democratic tool in which everybody can voice out their opinions and so on and so forth, and the truth will come out. Yeah, and that's also one of the important things. And we believe that these are the demands in which it's legitimate from our side, and I believe so that even from the central's point of view, the Congress is heavily into this, and we would also like to share this with all of you. Thank you.
When we are trying to address this issue whereby our students does not have access to computers, to internet. There's another example from Millennium where a student has passed her NEET exams. It was last year. But because of her limited access to internet and even to a smartphone, she missed the deadline to fill up her forms or maybe to get admission in an institute. So this is just a small example. What Balang has been stating from before, we can just sum it up as a total lack of seriousness of the government in the center as well in the state. It's all talk, it's lip service, whereby they are showing that the people in the rural areas would be benefited by all the schemes and policies of the government. But in reality, people in the rural areas, people who lack access to the computer, to the internet, they are missing the opportunities that students in the urban centers are getting. And if the media, if we can bring up such stories forward, right, we will know the real plight of our society. This is just one story. I believe if you go around the length and breadth of our state, there will be thousands of complaints, maybe